everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Ground Zero Lounge with Clyde Lewis. And I want to thank Bill, the camera guy right here. He's been great in getting these filmed and put on YouTube. So check out YouTube, Ground Zero Lounge. And usually it takes a few days to get on there, but share it with your friends. But anyway, if you've never heard of Ground Zero, I'm sure most of you have. Clyde's been doing Ground Zero radio for about 22 years. He started in Salt Lake City in 1995, and he's recognized as a powerful voice in both parapolitical and paranormal commentary. And we're on about 300 stations across the country. Ground Zero has been nationally syndicated since about 2012. We're on KXL, so you can either listen on the internet, go to kxl.com, or if you just want to listen on the radio here locally, it's 101 FM. And you can also go to talkstreamlive.com, and they have a whole bunch of radio affiliates. And then there's also a number to call if you just want to listen on the phone. But just go to our website, groundzeromedia.org. And for each show that we have, Clyde has a monologue. And so it's a good way to kind of get an idea of what he's going to be talking about. But so anyway, I want to get this going here, and I'd like to introduce to you Clyde Lewis.
Thank you, Ron. I have a very, very sad announcement to make. Rosie's not here tonight. Yeah, okay. I know a lot of people. Yeah, people are clapping. Some people know what I'm talking about. Only in the local show. I don't know why she calls all over from New York to bother me, but she does. And bless her heart. That's. There are a lot of people. I remember back in the day, we'd go to back when UFO conferences were really cheap. Now they're just like these big affairs where they have booking agents and all these big names show up. There used to be like UFO festivals where they were really cheap and everybody was to sit down. They had their tables and they had their pictures, and you go to some people and you can tell that on their picture they have a little lens flare, and they say, "Look at the UFO I got right here." You're going, "Well, it kind of looks like a lens flare." Look at you with such dismay, like you just basically took a big dump on their parade, right? And you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, bless your heart, it's a UFO." You have to get away. But it's kind of how Rosie is, I think. She's like, bless your heart, even though, you don't agree with me, you don't have to be nasty about it. But, I try to be nice. And even though when I try to be nice, people still think I'm an ass clown. So I don't know what to do about that. But I thank you all for coming out tonight. I really do. Because tonight, I'm going to talk about something that I want to try out on you guys first. You're the guinea pigs, okay? I don't do that often. Sometimes I talk about things that are on my mind, but this thing is something, you'll see why you're the guinea pigs, okay? Because this is a very, very, very touchy subject for a lot of people. It's a touchy subject for me too. To kind of give you an idea of how mixed I am about this sort of thing, I got two stories to share with you that will give you the idea about what it is I'm going through right now with this topic I'm about to talk about. First of all, when I was a kid, when I was younger actually, and I remember when Pixar first came out with their little short subjects, they came out with those animated shorts. And you'd see them and you go, God, these are so cool, man. This is the coolest thing. I swear if they make a whole movie about this stuff, using this type of technology, I'll be the first in line to be there. Well, now they happen all the time, and I just don't have the time to go see them all the time. So I feel like such a, like a jerk, because I said, well, I'd go and I'd support these, and I go to them. I mean, I'm not saying I don't go to them, because I do. I mean, you'd be a fool not to go to a Pixar film every once in a while, just kind of like to lose your mind in it. But it's kind of like the idea of a dog chasing a car. Dogs chase cars, and they chase cars because the wheels are turning, and they think it's really cool to see the wheels turn. But once they get the car, they don't know what the hell to do with it. They don't know what to do with the car. So they're like, "Bah, bah, bah," they bark at the car. This is the feeling I have about what I found out the other day that's happening right here in the state of Oregon. And there have been a lot of talk show hosts that have said things about what is going to happen here in the state of Oregon, and I think they sound very ignorant, and I think they should wait, and they should contemplate just what they're saying, because this is a topic that deals with people. It's a topic that just deals with people whose lives are shattered, whose lives are detached, who need our love and our support. And I'm talking about they're thinking about passing a bill where they want to defelonize cocaine and heroin use in the state of Oregon. They've already passed that bill? Okay, so they've already passed that bill. And I have heard so much hate being spewed out on the radio about this. And I was going to talk about it yesterday, but I avoided it, and I still may talk about it on Monday. No, I won't be working Monday because Roger Cluton from Northwest Coast Recon is getting married. Let's give him a hand for that. He's getting married to Cassie, so that'll be good. I'll be the best man at the wedding. We're gonna have a bachelor party tomorrow. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Anyway, so I was going to talk about it, but so many people were manhandling this topic that I couldn't really talk about it and give it justice unless I did a lot of thinking. And I've told people before, I don't always want to be first, I want to be the best. You know, people can jump on a topic the same day after. Sometimes it's imperative that I jump on a topic the same day, but this was the topic that I didn't want to jump on because I think we all have mixed feelings about this. And here's where the dog chasing the car comes into play. For the longest time, I've said on my show, and I'm going to say it here tonight, that I believe that drug addiction is a health issue. It's not a law enforcement issue. Do you agree or do you disagree? I'm not ready to... It's a health issue, and it's been a health issue. I can't say that I'm a victim of drug abuse, but I've seen a lot of people around me that have died from being addicted to opiates or meth or some other cocaine. I've had at least 3 people in my life very close to me that have died because of being addicted to these medications, these drugs. I recently, and what really helped me is I was looking up a number of things and studying a bunch of things on this to form an opinion that I wanted to present to all of you and run it by you, because you know, you're here because you're my friends, you're here because you're my fans, you're here because you listen to the program, and I thank you for that. I'm very grateful that we have this type of response to these get-togethers. They kind of like feel like hometown meetings, or you know, where you get together, and here we are in the community. We're all getting together to talk about things that aren't being talked about in the mainstream, and we're talking very, very passionately about it. We don't want to get too overly emotional about it, but we certainly don't want to hide our emotions on the subject matter, because this is very important. People's lives, in my opinion, are very important. And this is about life. This is about life. I wanted to present something to you and let you think about this for a moment. How many people that are in this audience tonight have had a very, very, very serious, painful operation by applause? By applause. I want to hear it. By applause. I have too. So when you've had this very painful operation, how many people know that what they're giving you to stay out of pain is about as potent, if not more potent, than heroin by applause? They're giving you probably the best, cleanest heroin you'll ever have in your lifetime when you have this type of problem with your body. You're getting clean, basically doctor prescribed heroin to keep you alive. Dilaudid, exactly. And I didn't realize this until I had my cancer, where I was taking morphine, Dilaudid, I was taking everything. I even was taking CBD, marijuana, in order to make myself feel good. I was doing everything. Back then, it wasn't legal. Here it's legal. It's here it's legal. But I had some friends who told me that it would help me with my appetite if I was to take some of the CBD, and I did, and it was great. In fact, it was a lot better than the hillbilly heroin I was taking that the doctor prescribed for me. But when you go under, you're getting like propofol, you're getting like, you're getting clean fentanyl, you're getting whatever. This is some pretty harsh shit, to be honest. It's harsh on your body. Now, how many of you, and I could probably, I just want the applause here because I need the audience out there that's hearing me to hear it. How many people, when you walked out of that operation, said, I need a fix of heroin? One person. One person. And the reason why you didn't walk out of that hospital saying you wanted more heroin or wanted more of that drug is because the doctors took time with you and weaned you off of your medications to make you have that much pain. They worked with you to do this. And if you had a good doctor, that doctor told you that you would be dependent on this medication, not addicted to this medication. There's a difference between dependence and addiction. Dependence is where you wake up in the morning and you have pain and you have to take a pill to get rid of the pain. That's dependence. Addiction is where you don't have the pain and you take it because it makes you happy or it makes you cope with what's going on around you. And this is the key. This is the key. When people become addicted to anything, it's because something is missing in their lives that they're trying to eradicate. And it doesn't matter if it's cocaine, it doesn't matter if it's heroin, it can be food, it could be sex, you're right, it can be sex. It could be a number of things that's filling that void. And this is why when I hear people saying things like, well, if they decriminalize or if they defelonize having cocaine or heroin, it's going to create problems in the city, what it's going to do is it's going to eliminate the need for the cartel. It's going to eliminate the need for people to sneak under the radar and get this heroin if they just happen to be in a motorcycle accident. Their doctor cuts them off from getting their regular opiates. It's kind of interesting, isn't it, that with an opiate epidemic they're saying we're having, they've decided they want to legalize heroin and cocaine, or they want to decriminalize heroin and cocaine. You know why? I'll tell you why. Portugal. Portugal. What's that? And decriminalizing, yes, there's a difference. It would still be a misdemeanor. It'd be like if you got caught with pot a while ago, you'd get a misdemeanor. It wouldn't be a felony, and it would be more of a health issue. So in Portugal, and I had this discussion with a friend of mine who's been to Portugal, and he said this is what they do in Portugal. In Portugal, when a person is doing heroin or doing cocaine, or they've done too much, they become a nuisance to themselves, they call the police, but the police do not arrest them. What the police do is they restrain them, and then they call the paramedics to take them to a hospital. They either admit them to a hospital and give them intensive treatment, or they put them in the mental ward and have them spend a night in the mental ward. And they try to get them counseling as soon as possible. They try to get them to work out their problems and find out what is missing in their lives. This is why, and this is another thing, this is why when you're dealing with Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or all these, they want you to have a sponsor. They want you to have a group of people that you can talk to because you feel like you belong to a group of people who care about you and want to see you succeed. It's all in the mind. Because if it was such a problem, and it was a problem that was a criminal problem, then everybody who had an operation where you had these types of drugs would all be addicted to it. Addiction, I believe, is part of a psychological process. And that what they're trying to do to each and every one of us is they're trying to create domestic psychosis in everyone, make them feel unloved, unwanted, and that is why we have these problems. People want more than anything in this world to have good food to make them healthy. They want clean water to drink and bathe in, and they want to be out of pain. That pain is not just a physical pain, but it's spiritual, it's psychological. And this is why if we just lift the problem of people trying to get stuff for their pain, either they'll get tired of being in that position, or people will understand that this is something that is missing. There's something missing in their lives that needs to be filled, whether they need to feel loved or appreciated or understood. You know, in Portugal, they give them worker programs. Because most of the people that become addicted to these medications, they don't have jobs. They don't have a spiritual path that they take. They don't have any spiritualism in their life. They don't have anything that they're a part of where they feel like they're wanted or loved or cared about. And the thing that's really sad about what's happening in this country is that something as small as one little marijuana plant has put people in jail and has broken up the family unit. It's not the marijuana that's broken up the family unit, it's the police that came in and took them out and put them in jail just because they were smoking something that was giving them a little bit of sanity and less pain. The bad thing is that they've scheduled the drug, marijuana, and now they can't look at it and understand the benefits of it. And that's the sad part, is that, you know, there are people, and I found this out, we work with a group called CannaSense. We did a show called CannaSense, about CannaSense, and it's this group out of California. And what they do is they provide doctors for people that can analyze or at least gives you a checkup, and then they sign off on a marijuana card for not recreational but medicinal marijuana. And that makes it legal if you have a doctor prescribing to you. Most of the time they can't touch you for that, and if you do, this company provides a lawyer for you to have representation in case you run into some problems with the feds. Well, when I did that show, I was very surprised that I had people in their 70s and in their 60s calling up wondering how they could sign up for this. Because they wanted more than anything in the whole world to stop their dependence on opiates. They wanted their dependence on heroin. And they knew, and the stories are countless, and this is part of the culling program I've talked about on the show before. They want, more than anything, to kill off those who are a nuisance to the system. And the people who are nuisances to the system are those who are on these medications or on opiates. They're putting a stress on the system and they want to see them go. So what do? They bring into the inner cities, they bring into cities these drugs that are said to be hydrocodone or oxycodone, and they turn out to be fentanyl. Also, people take the fentanyl and they die. They kill them off. So rather than working with people and caring about them and loving them, they wish to kill them instead. And that is why when I hear hate on the radio about these ideas, I look at Portugal, I look at the UK, because I know in the UK they're also experimenting with the possibility of giving people treatments and help. And I'm not the guy that's going to be making these laws. I'm not the guy that's going to be passing these bills. I'm not the guy that's coming up with their procedures. And there's no wrong or right answer to this. The only thing is, I'm hoping that they know what they're doing, and I'm hoping that this is going to teach us something about just what addiction is, what dependence is, and how people who are addicted are reaching out for something to fill the hole where they're not completed. And this will teach us about how we treat each other. Because all the people who don't understand it will say, this is horrible. But see, most of those people, either they've had a person in their life that's been an addict, and they've left them alone because they don't know how to deal with them. But we can find a way to deal with them, find a way to get them help, find a way to get mental help, because they need mental help. It's a health issue. It's not a criminal issue. Unless the person does something to harm someone else, then it becomes a criminal issue. But if they're doing it to themselves, then it's up to us to help that person get into a situation where they can help themselves get better. It's a time when we should be our brother's keeper. We should understand that there are a lot of families that are getting broken up by all of this. You know, one of the things I'm always told when I'm doing a show is that I should talk about the tenets in the list of what the Marxists want to do to destroy America. And they say, oh, you should do this. I'm not going, yeah, I want to come on the air and sound like a total bircher. You know, the communist thing is still, a lot of people, older groups want to talk about communism and how communism is infiltrating our country. And I say, well, I don't think a lot of that applies today. I think there are a lot of things that we have kind of accepted. That there was a mythology about communism we've accepted as in our society. We don't even realize we've done it. And we're far away from state socialism, if you want to know. We're far away from that. We're kind of nationalists now, which is, it's a change, but are we truly nationalists? That's the question. But see, every time people tell me that, the one thing that I see that sticks out in my mind is a tenet of communism and how it wants to take over the country is that the Marxists, the communists, the ultra left, whatever you want to call them, the biggest thing that's a obstacle to globalism is family. Families are an obstacle to globalism. The welfare state wants to convince people that they're better off if they're separated. They're better off if your kids are gone. They're better off if there's no father in the home or no mother in the home. They're better off if you can get benefits here for this, you can get benefits here for that. And what this does, it destroys our opportunity. It destroys our way of populating and keeping the national security infrastructure intact. Because those of you, and I hear people all the time when they call my show and they talk about Islam and they say, well, you just sound like you're just so pro-Islam. And I said, no, I don't know if it's about pro-Islam because, Muslims have a right to believe how they believe. We've got like 1.8 million of them who want to kill us all. That's a lot of people who want to kill you. So of course we're going to not like them for wanting to kill us all. But the problem here is that Muslims, most of them that are conservative, not necessarily Wahhabis who want to blow up a bus or blow up a train station, most of them believe in family, and most of them believe in having big families. And by sheer numbers alone, by 2050, we're going to be outnumbered. We're going to be outnumbered because one day we woke up and decided we didn't want to be family anymore. One day we woke up and decided we didn't want to make kids anymore. One day we woke up and decided we didn't want to have sex anymore. One day we woke up and we were told that if we had sex, we'd explode, we'd get AIDS, we'd get HIV. We get told, hey, you know what? I just found out that Multnomah County now has a gonorrhea pandemic. They just, I was reading about that the other day. They don't talk about that in the mainstream. They're too busy talking about the Russian conspiracy. Did you know, and this is something that I said on the air the other night, and I'm going to tell you this here too. Did you know that there are reporters at CNN right now that are sick and damn tired of talking about Russia? Did you know that? Did you know that 93% of their news and their news stories is about the Russian conspiracy? 93%. That means that there is all of this other stuff that's not being reported. All this other stuff that's not being talked about, all this other stuff that's not part of the zeitgeist or the agenda that the media sets for all of us to talk about. And in the meantime, the people that are talking about certain things, they have their agendas because they're either conservative, ultra-conservative, paleo-conservative, but where do we have an objective discussion about things that mean anything to you or me? I mean, if a Russian conspiracy means that much to you, then you've got a pretty boring life. Because life is escaping you. If you're worried that this rich, overcombed guy in New York had some meeting with a rock star and a lawyer, probably negotiating some Miss Universe thing, and you're thinking that this is collusion to bring down the country, you have a pretty poor life. And when they don't come up with any evidence, you have a pretty poor life. The only thing that I think we get out of this now is that Donald Trump Jr. is a total idiot. Yes, right? Yes. So if he's an idiot, I mean, yeah, they say that apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but, he's our president, he's our idiot, we got to deal with it right now. But the hatred and the problems that I see are getting in the way of life. They're getting in the way of national security. They're getting in the way of who we are as Americans and how we used to have a lot of compassion for people. And I'm not saying let's open our borders. I'm not saying unicorns, kitties, puppies, and farting rainbows. No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that, when you have a loss of social cohesion, when you give consent to how we're being led, and the only resistance that exists is a resistance because a bunch of people are butthurt over someone who didn't get elected to president, there's something wrong with the country. This is what the resistance is. The resistance is basically hurt feelings over somebody that didn't get elected. Antifa is a group of individuals that basically say they're anti-fascist, but they're exactly what they preach against. It's insane. The hypocrisy is insane. In the meantime, we want to know what's going on. We want to know why there are police down the street from us. We want to know why there's rioting in the streets. We want to know why we can't make ends meet. We want to know why our water is not pure. We want to know why people are dying of opiate overdoses. And then when the government decides they're going to do something where they're going to lift the felonies from cocaine and from heroin, people go off half-cocked emotional saying, oh shit, everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket, when they lose the very reason why we should be aware of something like this. This is nothing new. I read a book called Cherished Myths of the United States. Did you know that back in the 1800s, one of the things you don't see in these westerns is that every street in these old western towns smelled like horse shit. Every single one. And people were throwing up in the streets because they couldn't stand the smell. Nobody knows that, but it's true. Another thing that we don't know about is that back then, opiates, heroin, people used it all the time. And they used it to get rid of pain. Now, there were addicts then, but those addicts were taken care of. They were hospitalized. They were cared for, just like sick people were cared for. And they were given a little bit just so they could get through the day and whatever, but they never did have addicts to the point of committing crimes. They didn't have cartels. They had the Chinese. They gave it to the Chinese so they could work on the railroads a little longer, so they wouldn't feel any pain. That's where it came from, the Chinese. So all of the fear and all of the misunderstanding that we have about these drugs is basically turning people against each other. It's just one more thing to turn us against each other. And I can bet you that if we had more programs that can give people a reason to get up every day, besides a job, I think we would be able to eliminate a lot of problems in this country. It's really sad, and I don't know whatever happened to this guy, but I remember back when I was on my kicks about AI, artificial intelligence. And there was a movie that came out called Her. It's about a guy who fell in love with his computer, his Siri, his what they call the intelligence. It's kind of sympathetic intelligence. That's what Siri is. It's kind of a sympathetic friend that'll do anything for you because it's programmed to, and it listens to every whim, and it picks up on your feelings and what you want. And it's not hard to depend on just a voice saying, okay, I'll do this, okay, I'll do that. So in this film, Joaquin Phoenix is the lead in it. The film, he falls in love with this voice provided by Scarlett Johansson. He falls in love and he takes this AI out on a date. And I talked about this film one time on my show, and I said, you know what this says about our future? It says that we're pretty damn lonely. We're pretty damn lonely if something sympathetic AI can keep us happy when we don't have anybody to reach out to and to love and to befriend and to hang out with and talk to. And so I had this man call my show. He called my show, and I told him about how, soon robots will be like companions, and they're all ready to put out on the assembly line. They're all ready to put out these sex bots. It's kind of like Westworld, except the voice of the woman robot sounds like the voice of the woman you hear on the train. It says, "I want to have sex with you. Puertas a la derecha." I just, You hear that on the train, doors to my left. And that's exactly what it sounds like. But this old man called my show. And I told him, I says, you know, we have to get beyond the uncanny valley if we want to be able to be with a robot lover. It'd be like having sex with a washing machine, I guess. Or a toaster oven or something, I don't know. But he said, you know, Clyde, he says, I'm 70 years old. My wife died. I don't have a wife. The grandkids and my kids don't come over and visit as much as they'd like to. Because, of course, it costs a lot of money to travel and they're in another state. He said, I think that I would pay whatever price necessary to have a companion that I could talk to, even if it was an electronic companion. It would make the nights less lonely. It would make my life a lot better. And I felt terrible. I felt bad for this guy because I'm thinking no one is going to reach out to him and talk to him. And I'm thinking, man, it's already beginning. The loneliness is already beginning. AI is taking over. I was alerted to something the other day where Fox News reported, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, that by 2020, 40% of the workforce will be replaced by robots. 40%. In Hawaii, they're already considering the floor wage. That's another very touchy subject for people. Drugs, rehab, getting people to reach out and be with other people because we have to do it to survive because the robots are going to be here. And then when you talk about getting money for doing nothing, oh my God, we're going socialist. But think about it. If the government does not give people money to put back into the economy, the robots are going to ruin us. Our innovations are going to destroy us. And so in Hawaii, they're already proposing giving, I believe, $2,500 a month just to do nothing. If you can say that a robot has replaced you in your work, then you will get the money from the government because you were replaced by a robot. Did you know that, what is it? I think it's like 85% of the workforce at Amazon is a robot. 85% of the workforce at Amazon are robots. And Amazon has a store in Seattle. There's nobody at the counter. You walk in, if you want ice cream, you open up the refrigerator, you grab the ice cream, and you walk out. And you know what happens when you walk out? They pick up on what's on your phone, they get your account, they take the money out just like that. You don't even have to say hello to anybody, you just grab your stuff and walk out. People who drive, cab drivers, they're going to be replaced soon. You're going to be in a driverless car. They're already working with the airports to have pilotless aircraft.
Next year.
Next year, yeah, next year. Pilotless aircraft. They're going to be experimenting with pilotless aircraft. They already have in Las Vegas semi-trucks that are operated, that are basically half assisted by humans. In other words, they sleep in the back, they watch TV in the back, the truck drives itself, and then when it has to, they get into the seat, they check everything, the fuel, they check the dials, they check all that stuff, and then once they see that everything's fine, they get back in the back, watch TV, play video games, or do whatever. That's what a truck driver does now.
They have robot brothels now in Tokyo.
Yes, they do. Tokyo robot brothels. Robot brothels. And and this is why they're saying that, you know, AI is going to replace a lot of things in our lives. And, you know, I don't know if it's good or bad, but the uncanny valley we're going to have to go across. But see, this is the thing. If these innovations are going to be that convenient for everybody, and you look at your children, they say that a 2-year-old in 10 minutes can figure out how to run an iPad. Give an iPad to a child, a 2-year-old child, he'll figure out how to work it in 10 minutes. And you know what? I feel so stupid because I can't do that. I get one of those phones and I freak out. I don't know how to use it. I'm scared of them. I have a stupid phone. Everybody else around me has a smartphone. I'm the stupid one. I have a stupid phone. You know, you've seen them about the size of a bar of soap. You know, beaten to hell. I mean, everybody says, show me your stupid phone, and I show them. It's a stupid phone, and I've got one, okay?
And yet they're very sturdy.
Yeah, they still hold together. I mean, eventually I may have to cave in and get one of those because I mean, I'm getting to the point where I call directory assistance and a robot answers the phone and they can't give me the goddamn number I'm looking for, so I just basically want to throw my phone against it. So I figured if I go to Google, I'll be able to get the phone number on my own. So they're doing this. This is a conspiracy to make you get a damn smartphone so you look stuff up on your own. I guess when I first presented the idea of this whole drug thing, I think deep down, my biggest concern is not really about the drugs. It's not really about decriminalizing drugs, or at least taking away the felony aspect. I think my biggest worry right now is humanity and how we're losing our humanity to a certain degree. And we're losing our humanity to ideologies that are immoral. We're losing our humanity to fear. We're losing our humanity to a lot of things. And I'm fighting like hell not to lose mine. And I hope you fight like hell not to lose yours. Because it's easy to do when you're living in a world that's being taken over by technocrats. I mean, we talk about the deep state. We talk about the secret government. We talk about the shadow government. We talk about all of these groups that want to bring down our political infrastructure. We talk about the military-industrial complex and how they're expanding in space and how we're militarizing the police and how we're living in this militarized state. But these are old issues that have been building for some time. And like I've said in the past, what bothers me is that when the debates were going on, when the politicians were speaking their minds, they were still talking about old hat issues. They weren't talking about the innovations that may take our jobs away. They didn't talk about the robots. Now they are, but maybe it's a little too late. They're not talking about the idea that you can have your DNA taken from you and they can copy it in a CRISPR. They can even embed a movie in your DNA. They can put a trademark on your DNA, and when you decide that you want to do it, they could charge you for even having your DNA, even though it's yours. They now, the groups like Monsanto and others, now it's no longer the idea of making a seed that's available that they can just spread, Roundup all over it so it can swim in Roundup. It's not that anymore. It's, hey, we're just going to put Roundup right in the seed. So your genetically modified seeds are going to have Roundup in them. And glyphosate is a carcinogen. Glyphosate is what gives people cancer. These GMOs are giving us cancer. These experimental things are giving us cancers. They're giving us diabetes. They're giving us all these things. And once again, it's just more money for bad pharma, for big pharma, pharmacies. And not only that, how do we treat the elderly? How do we treat the elderly in our country now? Because it's appalling that when baby boomers and those beyond the baby boom times, I knew that they were that the government would see them as a big burden on the system. And there would be all kinds of laws and insurance problems, and we're in this now. And I said this long before Obamacare was an issue, long before they wanted to repeal and everything. I knew that the very thing that our elders were working for, even our veterans were working for, would be taken from under them because they would become such a burden on the system that the system would ignore them. And you wonder why we have addicts in this country. You wonder why they worry about defelonizing heroin and defelonizing cocaine. You know why they worry about it? Because then they have to give a shit. Then those who are making these laws and rules have to care about you. And they have to care about me, and they have to care about other people. And you know what's really strange is, if you wanted to find a monster is someone who just doesn't care anymore. That's basically what they are. They don't care. All they care about is them.
Like a politician.
Like a politician, yeah. All they care about is them, and all they care about is whether or not they can instill upon everybody this domestic psychosis that a lot of people have already given into. And they give into it every time they have to turn on the TV and hear 93% of Kremlin conspiracy 24/7 on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox. I think that we should demand more. I think that we should speak up more. I think the resistance shouldn't be a bunch of people who put masks on their face and kick in doors of Starbucks and McDonald's in downtown Portland. I think we need to speak out and speak up more and get involved. Yes, and get involved. If you're applauding, it's great because, you know, you can applaud here. It's not a library. We're a bar, I guess. But that's the thing, is that they've already got the resistance, and the resistance is negative. We all know what we don't like. We all know what we're standing against, but does anybody want to talk about what they stand for anymore?
I'm scared to hurt someone's feelings.
They don't care about yours. And you know, you can do things without hurting people's feelings. You can. I mean, if you have the enthusiasm necessary to get something done, you'll do it. And here's the thing that's so funny. The other day, for those who listen to this program, I commented on this study that was done in England. And this study deals with the idea that we can, that the things that happen in the future can actually affect the present and the past. Retrocausality, I've been talking about it for the longest time. And now scientists are saying they can see molecules go back in time and that they influence the past. So I wanted to test this out on my own, so I did a whole show about this. Excuse me, and I did a whole show basically showing that when you look at the list of the ages, when you go from the age of the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and then Doomsday, you're seeing that all the things that happened back then are happening now. It's a repeat performance. And we're in the middle of it, and I'm thinking, well, maybe it's because we are affecting something in the past, and we're doing the same thing because we've all had this accumulated trauma that's gone down from generation to generation. We're just acting it out now, and crunch, it's all going to go back and it's going to bite us in the butt again. Well, what's hilarious is that I read this thing, and it really, really struck me as odd. It said, the stomach ache you're having today, according to retrocausality, the stomach ache you're having today is the sandwich you ate 3 days in the future. Now think about that for a moment. You're getting a stomach ache today because of a sandwich you ate 3 days in the future. Now that sounds insane, impossible, right? And I thought that was pretty clever, and I've known about acausality, time travel, Mandela effect. We've talked about that all on my show. And what's hilarious is that, how many remember when I had, it wasn't just recently, but when I had Liam on the show, and we talked about video games, and then I brought on Mark Bowden from Quarter World, and I said there was this game that was in Oregon called Polybius. And everybody said they remembered playing it, and then these men in black would show up and they would open up the back of this console video game and they would look at it, they'd see how many people are playing it and what's going on and whatever. And then they'd close it up and walk away. So the men in black were watching this game, and for a month they had it and then they took it out. So people remember playing Polybius. Some do, some don't. Some think it's an urban legend. Some people think it's a hoax. But just yesterday, I found out that Nine Inch Nails, the band Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor, is coming out with a song. I think it's called The Last One, is the name of the song. And the video actually is someone playing the game Polybius. Yeah. Some guy in Germany, and I had no idea this was going to happen, he basically designed a new video game called Polybius. And they're going to release it simultaneously with this new song 8 days from now.
Will that match up to what, I mean, I've never heard of the game until now.
Until you talked about it, yeah.
Right, but is it going to match up to what it was back in the day?
I don't know, because I think a lot of people don't know, but of course in the song it says it hypnotizes you, it makes you sick, the song talks about the game Polybius, about what it did to people. And so you're seeing somebody playing the game Polybius that's already been designed again, but here's the deal. So Liam wanted to come on and talk about these games that he was playing, and I thought it'd be a great idea to have him on because I didn't have him on for a while, which triggered me to talk about this game Polybius that was considered to be a game that people played and it had the Men in Black. So I was talking about the Men in Black like 3 days before. Men in Black come in, they take a look at this game. People are thinking it's some weird game. They take it out of the video game parlors in Oregon. Didn't think anything of it, and then 2 weeks after I talk about Polybius, some guy decides to redesign it, put it out, and have it accompany a Trent Reznor song. And it still doesn't come out for 8 days. Now, wasn't that kind of like the stomach ache I had from a sandwich that I ate 3 days later? It was in my mind, and I talked about it, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, it becomes a reality. Now, how did that happen? What's that? Did I plant the seeds, or was it already in me? Did I get that? What happened? It's like, they've been saying for the longest time that we have the ability to be psychokinetic, or we have the ability to be psychic. Now, I'm not saying I'm a psychic. I don't say I'm psychokinetic, because that would be, I don't believe that I am. But there's got to be something to be said about retrocausality, and how when we see things on television that remind us of events that have happened much later, we call it predictive programming. Well, what if somebody has more insight than you or I, and they're able to talk about this or demonstrate it? And that's why it scares me that when you see something like the TV show Salvation, which is just out now. CBS is doing a show about salvation where an MIT student discovers that there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet within 6 months. I'm saying, well, hey, we've had a few close calls before. And they open up the first one, the first TV, I saw a preview of it. First thing they open up with is the Chelyabinsk meteor that exploded over Russia back in 2013. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And they have Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about, they have him on the first episode talking about how we have no control over this if it happens. We don't know what we're going to do. And I'm thinking, what are they trying to tell us? And then they have now allocated money not only for a mining mission on the moon and a mining mission on Mars, but now they're allocating money for a asteroid removal system and a space fence. That we talked about the space fence on the show with Alana Freeland. They're going to have a space fence, and they're going to also allot money to go out and mine, or at least explode a part of, not the full thing, but they're going to put a hole in an asteroid to change its trajectory. Yeah, they already have it, but they're going to send the mission out, I think, in 2018.
But they don't have to know what the composition of the...
No, they don't, but they have to go out and they have to first, they're going to land, well, they got that one that the European Space Agency was working on.
Yeah, but not everyone's the same.
I know, it's a composition, but see, this is the thing, is that they know what they're doing, at least we think they do, and this is another thing that convinces me they have a secret space program. It's because all of a sudden, everything that was once a big secret is now transparent. They have a Space Corps now. Have you heard about this? Have you listened to my show? They have now developed a group called Space Corps. This is the first time in 70 years, it's the first time since Roswell, New Mexico, where something alien allegedly crash landed in New Mexico. They decided to separate the Army Air Force. They created the CIA and the NSA. Now, something is going on up there where they have to be transparent about the fact that the Air Force and NASA have decided to create a combined effort to have something called Space Corps. Space Corps. And they are going to be astronauts that will be trained to go up and deal with problems in space. Now, whether it be China or Russia or satellite eaters or even aliens, I don't know. But we have been told for some time now that there's a secret space program. Gary McKinnon hacked into a Pentagon. He hacked into a Pentagon and a NASA computer and said that he was able to read a list of off-planet military people and different ships that existed that he had never heard of. He didn't hear of any of them here on planet Earth, that he said that these were something that were off-planet. And they were going to extradite him for terrorism, but they didn't do it. But he told everybody, this is what I saw. He saw also aircraft, flying aircraft, flying platforms that we have out in space somewhere. And we've had, what, discussions with a guy named Captain K, who told us that he was on a Mars mission expedition. After Captain K came Corey Good, who said that he did the same thing. We have Andrew Basaggio, who said he was part of something called Pegasus, where he jumped from Earth to Mars. So all these guys coming forward talking about Martian, travels and moon bases. I've got pictures in my library, my computer library, of documents dated 1958. Project Event Horizon, 1958, Werner von Braun, several other people, saying that they wanted to have a moon base active by 1969 and that they had to begin construction in 1958. And it's amazing. Because there have been people who have said, and there are documents you can see, they've said they've seen things on the moon that are unexplained, they don't know what they are. Even NASA says they see things on the moon that are unexplained, but they won't tell us that when they went to the moon in '69 or whenever they went to the moon, that they came across these structures, or perhaps they saw strange things floating above the moon. And so it's getting harder and harder to be transparent. I mean, to basically keep things not from being revealed. They're having a harder time doing this, and that's why they say things that with confidence, they'll be able to tell us that there's life out in space.
Well, it's like the Easter Island head that they found on Mars. Did you see that picture?
I didn't see that. They found an Easter Island head on Mars?
They got an Easter Island head that was out on Mars. I saw it blown all over the place.
I didn't see that.
On YouTube.
I didn't see that. How are we doing for time?
5 more minutes.
I have 5 minutes, really? Should we do Q&A?
Yeah.
Want to do Q&A now? We can do Q&A now. 5 more minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 minutes. So, I think about when I was a kid, and I hate getting into that, back in the good old days, things were better, because we know that things were okay. There are a lot of great things now. A lot of great things now. A lot of technology we have now. We've lost our kids to it, but yeah, it's all there. And we have a lot of fun things. We have movies that are better now. We have books that are better now. We have comic books that are both readable and watchable. And we have games that, take our time away. And we have technology to study and have knowledge. We can go to the library, but it's as good as going to Google and typing and stuff as well. We got all that good stuff happening. But I worry, though, and I've said this before, I worry about the social cohesion. And we have all these people that are scared about the future, so scared, in fact, that they're willing to say whatever and convince you of whatever. And they use their emotional baggage to push it on to everybody when everyone just wants a little bit of humanity. That's what we're lacking. And it all goes back to the addiction argument. It all goes back to the idea that most of us are lucky enough to have somebody to reach out to when we're sick. When we feel like we are dependent on something that is going to kill us, we have someone to reach out to. Most of us do. And for those of us who don't, we need to find somebody, or we need to find a group, or we need to be a part of something. Or we need to do something for ourselves that we know is contributing to our lives. We need to take the time to care about those people that need help. We need to care about the elderly, and we need to care about how we treat them and how we treat our fellow man. Because it's so easy to go on Facebook and say something really crappy to somebody. And I admit, when people say crappy things to me, I say crappy things back. And, I need to stop that, but I just think that, once again, it all goes back to the idea that we all know what we stand against, but do we ever talk about what we stand up for and who we're going to stand up for when stuff gets real?
Yeah, but they've taken that out of everybody. They've done it since school. Now you can't.
Well, I still have a little bit in me, and I'm sure you have a little bit in you. We all have a little bit in us.
Majority.
Well, it's because a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid to say what's on their mind. And that's why I always say, when I do my show, I say dialogue's important. Yeah, I mean, we need to know that there are other people. I mean, I've had people all the time say to me, you know, it's really nice to have a show where I hear other people feel the same way I do. And that you allow people to feel that way, and you don't tell them, well, this is the way to think, and you should think this way, and vote that way, and blah. That's the point. I just think that there are people out there who need to be heard. Every wild idea, every crazy feeling you ever had, every moment where you've been confused, every time that you've heard the same old from other talk show hosts who have said, well, I just listened to Rush, so I'm just going to mimic him. Well, I just listened to Glenn Beck, I'm just going to mimic him. I just listened to Sean Hannity, I'm going to mimic him. And then comes Clyde. Boy, he's out of his fucking mind, isn't he?
That's why we love you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really nice. But it's not because I'm out of my mind. It's because I've decided that objectivity is far more interesting than basically pushing an agenda. And if I'm pushing an agenda, I'm saying, I'm pushing an agenda. And my agenda tonight is, damn it, we need to be humane to each other. There's nothing wrong with that agenda. It's supposed to help, right? And back to the drugs. I'm doing some soul searching on this. I really am. And I really truly believe that it's detachment. I believe it's domestic psychosis. I believe that those who are addicted because they are missing something in their lives. And we need to find a way to fill that void. We need to find a way to fill them up and complete them. Because some people don't feel completed unless they have that hand or that feeling that they're not going to die alone. And they're not going to be alone. And they're not going to be out on the street alone. And they're not going to be, I mean, I'm not telling everybody, hey, open your doors to the homeless. But I just think that a lot of people, and I don't know what the answers are, but a lot of people feel detached, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. And I think the dialogue where we include people and talk with them and listen a lot, we will certainly find out more about others, and we'll find out more about who we are too. And I think that's important. So did I do the 5 minutes?
Are you ready?
Okay, question.
Hey, Clyde. I'll make this a real quick story about the being able to foretell the future and stuff.
Yeah.
This has been going on with me for about 20 years now. I'll make it real quick. Back when I was living in New Hampshire, there was a woman who used to come into my liquor store every Friday, buy her vodka and her lottery tickets. Well, a few years later, believe it or not, I had a dream about this woman. She was on a tennis court, and all of a sudden she was hit by a tennis ball in her knee in my dream, and it blew her knee out and it killed her. As she was being dragged off the court dead, I started to wake up out of the dream. The numbers 13, 26, and 27 popped into my head. A couple days later, she comes in, and this is in real life, she comes into my store, she buys her vodka, and she asks me, Mike, can you give me my usual Powerball ticket, easy pick, which is a computer pick? And guess what happened? 13, 26, and 27 came up on an easy pick. This kind of thing, Clyde, has been happening throughout my entire life now. Not just, and that's not a coincidence. There's something going on here. I tried to get a friend I used to work with up at the airport with me to come and see Ground Zero Lounge. He couldn't do it. And I said to myself, I bet you his mom's sick. The Ground Zero Lounge comes up one day. I came here, he couldn't come, and the reason he told me was he had to go see his mom in the hospital. I'm having this thing happen to me. It's been getting worse throughout my 20s and 30s. It's happening for a reason. I would never make something like this up.
Well,
What do you think this is?
well, I think what you need to do is you need to write it down in a book. You got to get a diary. You have it near your bed, or you have it somewhere where you get it.
Right.
Write this down and see if you get patterns. If you find patterns with what you're doing, then obviously somebody's trying to tell you something, or you're feeling something, and you do have that extrasensory perception, and that way you're not just thinking it's happening to you. You have a record of it happening to you. You can go back and say, well, wait a minute, I thought about this. See, the good thing that I have is that every day I come into the office and I write. It's something that my history teacher told me I needed to do because he said that, it would make me smarter. And believe me, I mean, I know a lot of stuff, but sometimes I'm not as smart with other things, but I know a lot about history and I know a lot about other things because of what I write about. But at least I have a record of what I thought about and what I talked about. It's like a diary. This is what I talked about on this day. And I can go back and I can say, hey, I was talking about this. It's like that whole thing with Polybius. You know, if you're not listening to the show, I can go back and I can show you where I talked about Polybius on this day. I had no idea that Nine Inch Nails was going to come out with a new EP where their video was going to have Polybius in it, and a guy in Germany was going to redesign the game Polybius. I had no idea.
It's too much of a coincidence.
It is. It's a coincidence, but you know, what does it mean? You know, it's like, okay, this is going to save the planet. And like the lottery numbers, hell, I wish I could get the lottery numbers and have a dream about them and win.
I've been very close. I had one number, which was number 10. I played my own. And then every digit after that was exactly one digit off. This has happened many times. It's never actually, I've never actually won.
But you're close.
Very, very close.
One day you're going to hit it. And
Yeah,
you're going to remember me, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, Clyde. We all remember you.
Okay,
man.
thank you.
All right.
I just want to be remembered. I got the winning numbers. I got to call Clyde. Clyde? Yeah. I just snorted. Okay, question over there.
Okay, one moment.
What do you think's going on?
Yes.
What do you think is going on in Antarctica?
Oh, let me just pull up a chair here. Okay, this is going to be a long story. I don't want to be mean or anything, but I want to tell you a little secret, okay? And the little secret is this. Most of what you're hearing about Antarctica is bullshit right now, okay? This is me telling you what exactly is happening, all right? China has just constructed a moon base, a radio telescope in Patagonia, okay? Patagonia is in Argentina. It's one of the nearest stops. There's Punta Arenas, but there's also another stop in Argentina, Patagonia, that is near Antarctica, okay? They are searching an area of space for a signal. This has been going on now for about a year. Barack Obama went to Argentina for some diplomatic thing, at least so he said. But what he really did is he toured the facility in Patagonia where the Chinese showed him that they're serious about extraterrestrials, okay? Well, lo and behold, after Barack Obama goes to Patagonia, we realize that other people have been going to Antarctica. We have the guy that's the head of the CIA goes to Patagonia. We have who else? We had the Orthodox Russian bishop went down there and apparently he blessed the penguins. Wink, wink. Okay. He blessed the wink, wink penguins down there. We had Secretary of State, we had CIA, we had Buzz Aldrin. He went down there, but he got sick because the oxygen levels are different in Antarctica. Now, if you go back to past history, all right, the Russians at Lake Vostok were digging. Okay, they were digging for oil or digging for something down there at Lake Vostok, and they found something. Something that's called species 46 or species 49. It was a species they couldn't classify. It was like an octopus, but it had more legs than an octopus. It was botanical life. It was in the water, and so this is why I believe this is why that they have decided to go to Europa and to Enceladus, because both those planets have the same conditions as Antarctica. And I think that what happened down there was not that they found some fast frozen alien civilization, or they found UFOs, or they found some Nazi encampment. I mean, that's all back in the days of Admiral Byrd, and maybe it did happen, and maybe there was something in New Schwabenland and Base 211 and all that stuff, if you read any of the history about what went on in Antarctica. And they did find things that looked like pyramids down there, but the one pyramid picture you're seeing with Buzz Aldrin saying something is not real. It wasn't real. It was something that they put out there and then they took out, they got rid of. But what they found down there was some alien life form in the water at Lake Vostok. And they're not telling the people because They found alien life on planet Earth living in water underneath ice. And that's why they feel, and that's why they have said, in my opinion, that's why they have said in all confidence that they will find life on Enceladus and Europa, because the conditions on Enceladus and Europa would be the same for what this species was they found at Lake Vostok. So the Russians know, we know, that's why the Russian Orthodox head of the church there went down, because they knew and they wanted everybody to see what this was. It's alien life on planet Earth, because you know, when you go to Antarctica, there are plenty of Martian rocks there. I mean, whenever Mars ejects something, it always hits Antarctica, and they find Martian rocks down there. They have found probably bacterial life in the rocks. But most of the stuff you're hearing about this, alien war going on down there or something else. Look, I can say that blue mice are down there, having a war, and you wouldn't know it because you haven't been to Antarctica. I can make it up. But what I do know is what I can document, and that is there was a piece of Antarctica that broke off the size of Rhode Island that's now drifting in the oceans down there. I do know that they found a species of something in Lake Vostok where the oxygen levels are different. There are a lot more oxygen in the water there. I know that once they had this discovery, there was electromagnetic disturbances they had a few earthquakes there, and then, lo and behold, we're getting ready to put money into probes going to Enceladus and Europa, because those planets have the same conditions as Antarctica. So put it all together, and that's what happened in Antarctica. Nothing, no alien war, no flash frozen civilization that's living in pyramids, no UFOs, just aliens, but not the kind of aliens we think about. These are aliens that look like octopus. I mean, it's really funny too, when they found that creature, there was a new movie out called Arrival. Did you ever see that movie? In that movie, what? They're talking to octopus, or they look like octopus, they're called septopods. Isn't that interesting that they're showing us that they're talking with septopods and trying to communicate with the same creature they may have found in Antarctica? So just put it all together, and there you go.
They're pre-normalizing.
Yeah, they're pre-normalizing this, yes. So, does that answer your question? Was there anything else that I'm not covering? All right. Go ahead.
Hey, Clyde.
Hi.
Good to see you here.
Good to see you, Jake.
I'm really impressed and blown away by your presentation here on opioid and addiction and whatnot. I've struggled with addiction in my life vastly, and it's a huge issue, so I'm really...
So did you find something that you could attach to get you off your addiction? Because that's what I think addiction is you're needing something to attach to. And what fills it for you is your addiction.
Well, I switched from Vicodin to whiskey, so I don't think...
That's reaching out with whiskey. That's okay. One for another.
But what I wanted to ask you was, so a lot of people with mental illness, with addiction problems, paranormal things kind of happen to them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering to get your take on the kind of interconnection between mental illness and addiction is a form of mental illness.
It is, and that's why I was talking about how it should be treated as a health issue and not a criminal issue, because it is a mental illness. It's something where the body is reaching out for something to fill a void that isn't being filled, and so they cover it with drugs. So, your question again, I'm trying to ascertain here, Ron. I'm trying to figure out, what's your question again?
Just the interaction between like the spiritual world.
Oh, okay. Mental illness.
And,
There was a recent article that was released. That now this proves my point even more. People are now requesting exorcisms over psychological evaluations. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that something is lacking spiritually. And many of those who are requesting exorcisms are addicts. So what that tells me is that the body is weakened, and we all know, if we know anything about the paranormal, that when the body is weakened, it's opening up for influences that may be considered darker or chaotic or feral. And more people, when they find themselves in addiction, find themselves in situations where they feel as though they need an exorcism or they need to get the devil out of them. And I'll bet you most of the time that's what it is. That they feel as though something has taken over them, and it's almost like they're not in control. And so if they're not in control of their lives, then maybe they can say a demon is in control of their lives. Something is missing. And so whatever is missing will be filled up with something, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or even a spiritual, a spiritual cancer, which is a demon. And so it's really interesting, as I said. In fact, I think I mentioned this on my show 2-3 nights ago, that people are preferring exorcisms over talking to a psychological or a psychiatrist. So where we're failing in medical and medicine, churches are gaining. And the thing is that the churches are refusing them. They're not giving people that. They're not giving them the exorcisms because they feel as though that, it's silly, that superstition that's taking over. Well, somebody out there is missing something. They're missing something. There's a link that's missing. There's a puzzle piece that's missing, and people are trying to find it, and they'll do anything to find it. They'll scramble. They'll do drugs. They'll fight. They'll run away. But the solution is within all of us. You all hear the truth is out there. Well, the truth is in us. And all we have to do is kind of go through this idea that this is as good as it gets until it gets better. So be used to yourself. Be used to those around you. Love them. And reach out if you need help. And there's somebody out there. I remember there's a Viva Las Vegas. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a dancer, stripper. That I remember I met. She was a famous stripper that danced here in Portland, and I met her at one of the clubs here. I think it was it was Ash Street. I met her at the Ash Street Saloon. And I was introduced because Storm Large was there and a few other people were there that were, they were the hipsters that I was new and they wanted to know who I was because they had my radio show, and so I sat and I talked with her. Well, I found out like weeks later that she got cancer. And it was a really sad thing, and she had breast cancer, and felt really bad about it. And then I ended up with my kidney cancer. Okay, so she was interviewed in Portland Magazine about what her experience was with breast cancer. And the funny thing is I read it and I started relating to what she was saying. But she said to me, she said, when you get cancer, you find out who your true friends are, and you find out who, your other friends aren't. And she says it's very surprising how your friends that are closest to you sometimes are the ones that abandon you the first, and the ones who you didn't know were your friends come to you. And they come to you when they realize that you need someone. And it's really amazing how that happens. Dave Paul, who has been here many times, good friend of mine, he's a great man. I remember I met him once during 9/11. We were reporting about the 9/11 attacks together. And I didn't see him for the longest time. One day I was staying at a condo that was provided to me by some people because they wanted me to live in a nice place that was easier for me to get around in, so I lived there for a while. I get a knock at the door, and standing there is Dave Paul. And I said, what are you doing here? I haven't seen you since 9/11. And he says, I have this frying pan, I have some cheese, I have a dozen eggs. He says, I'm gonna make you the best damn cheese omelet you've ever had in your life. And you know what? It was the best damn cheese omelet I ever had in my life. And I had breakfast with him every week when he's available. We had breakfast together. And it was then I realized that some people that you don't even know are your friends are gonna reach out to you and they're gonna help you. And you're not gonna expect it. And that is why I think it's important that we know who our friends are, and we make sure we hold them close to us, and we make new friends as well, because that's going to fill that void. And we're going to have dialogue, and we're going to talk, and we're going to try and understand each other. We're going to try to get back that humanity that we've lost because our social cohesion's dying because of social media and other things. When just getting together like this is good enough. We know that we're among people who share a lot of the same values and a lot of the same ideas, and even if we don't, it's nice to hear other ideas that, we hear life experiences that we've never had, and that's an important thing too. Sharing is what's important, I think.
Hey, Clyde, we have another question back here.
Okay, where?
Right here, back here.
Where are you?
Back of you.
Oh, thank you. Hi, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm just reading off an article on MIT about first object teleported from Earth to orbit. It's a Chinese experiment on quantum satellites.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you.
Yeah,
heard of this?
they were able to teleport. Was it a proton? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're able to teleport a proton out in space. That is very important. That's very awesome, because if you remember back, who was on the show talking about that a while ago? When he did the experiment.
Marshall Barnes.
Marshall Barnes. Marshall Barnes did something similar when he was at the Skype Live studio. He didn't teleport something, but he was able to show us how he could create a magnetic field and send something into another area of a room. So he kind of did that experiment too, but now the Chinese are doing it for real, sending stuff out into space. So that's a breakthrough, and it's a big deal. And I don't understand why, we're not talking about that in the mainstream. I mean, we'd rather talk about whether or not, Putin and Trump are having a threesome. I just don't get it. So.
They do it to keep the mind occupied.
Well, they're just distracting us from what is important, and that is, we're again at a time where we can reach out. We can reach the stars. We can reach inward. We can, do cyberspace, and we can get information, and we can do all kinds of things. But that's getting a backseat to all this political claptrap that I don't know if anybody really gives a shit about. If they do, then man, they're really, really lonely people, I think. Is there a question over there?
Hold on, let me come over there.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to add something to the narcotic discussion.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to paraphrase Martin Luther King and say, let's judge one another by the content of our behavior and not by the chemicals in our bloodstream.
Exactly.
And then also, I worked at a hospital here for 30 years in a position where I would know this. There were 2 people saved by medical intervention, and there were 2 people who died because of medical mistakes. The interventions were done by people I know were on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and the medical mistakes were done by people who, passed drug tests, no problem. And once somebody makes a mistake, and they have drugs in their system, they look no further. They go, okay, that's the problem, drugs.
Yes.
When in fact, in many cases, it's not that at all. It's something like things are labeled to look like one another, and that they could take steps to make it safer.
Right.
But once they find drugs, they go, whoops, that's it.
I think-
They're not looking any further.
I think that people who judge people who do drugs have never done drugs.
Think about JFK.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I listen to some talk shows, and I listen to these guys acting like they know everything there is to know about drugs. And I'm like thinking, especially those who talk about marijuana, and I just laugh. It's like these are the people that if you, they don't know what's going on. They don't know how it helps people. It's like when I did the Kratom show. And yeah, thank you. It's like when I did the Kratom show, and I'm thinking, okay, here we have something that's going to help people who have a heroin addiction. Here we have something that's going to help people who have addictions, and they don't want to be so super high that they can't function. So they want to use something called Kratom that will suppress, these feelings. And they want to make it a Schedule I drug when it's just a plant. It's a plant. It's a tea. So we're going to make a tea a Schedule I drug. No. And the truth of the matter is that they're basically messing around with all this because waiting in Uruguay is a lot of what is called GMO pot that they want to package and sell to people. That's the problem I'm seeing in the future is they're going to take away these growers that are, doing their best to keep it all pure and good and healthy, and they're going to screw it up by introducing GMO pot into the thing, and it's just going to screw everything up. And we're going to go back and say, remember when pot was illegal and you got high? Remember when it was legal and then you got to the point where you're thinking, I can handle this. And then they gave you this crap. They put crap into the system. Anything that a government or big pharma can get their hands on, they usually spin it into crap. And I mean, you can attest to that being a nurse. Whatever they get their hands on makes it crap. And I had this discussion with my doctor too, because, you know, I tell him flat out how I feel about, you know, opiates and drugs and everything. And he's the one that taught me a valuable lesson about dependence and addiction. And, you know, we had the conversation again. I says, you know, dude, I said, they're making you out to be a spy. And they're making your pharmacists out to be a spy. The DEA has such a noose around the pharmacies and the doctors that the minute you go up and you say, yes, can I have some oxycodone? Immediately they're watching you. And they're looking for flags. They're looking if you're a pill seeker. They're looking if you're some, I mean, they treat you like a child. And in places where they treat drugs and drug use, and when they treat you like an adult, and they treat it as a medical issue rather than a law enforcement issue, there are less addicts, and there are less crimes, and there are less cartels, and less people being shot and killed over a plant or a pill. Now, if we want that, then we need to get involved, and when they make these defelonization of drugs, whether it be cocaine or heroin or anything, we should be involved and we should express dialogue about this. There are, I'm sure, things that will not work, but we need to come to a consensus about what will work, because it is a problem and people are dying, and it's just part of the culling process. It's iatrogenocide, but it's being done by not only the cartels, but it's being done by one of the biggest cartels of all, and that's Big Pharma. Okay, so, yeah, thank you.
I was a pharmacist.
Thank you. What's that? You were?
I'm a pharmacist.
Okay, and you know that.
Anyway, think about JFK and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yes.
Now, if he probably wouldn't have been able to pass the drug screen, right?
No.
But I would have been really happy to have him there where he was and not somebody else.
So being a pharmacist, I have a question to ask you. I asked my doctor this, and he kind of agreed with me. I did a show about the efficacy of opiates. What guarantee that we have if we get opiates, if we get pain pills, what guarantee that we have that each pain pill is effective as the other pain pill? Because I have a theory that maybe when you get your pills, some of them are placebo and others are real. Because some people, even me, when I take them, because I don't take them, I have to take them sometimes. I take them, and what one pill would kill, 2 pills will have to kill. And it's not because of the intensity of the pain, it's because it's just not working. And I'm thinking that maybe within my little bottle, I have some placebo and I have the real thing. And I'm thinking that this is also creating drug addicts. And it's creating people that are dependent because they have to continue taking, because maybe the efficacy of one pill isn't the same as the other pill, and they're basically screwing us that way.
I agree. Been there, done that.
Yes.
Have you ever had, about the heroin thing, have you ever had a discussion with Lars Larson about this? You guys work-
No, I don't want to have a discussion with Lars Larson about this. I just don't. I mean, I can attest to turning off the radio several times this week. Because it's like, I'm sorry, but, you know, I just know some things and I just shake my head and think, you know, come on. When are you going to have some humanity here? Have some humanity. You know, we see the worst of it when we see people on the streets. We see the worst of it. We see the homeless. We see the worst of it there. But you know, there are people, maybe some of you in this room, that don't even want to talk about it. You probably have an addiction. And it's none of my business, but you know what? It wouldn't change my feelings about you at all. You're a human being. We're all human beings, and we all have our fragility, and we have everything. This world is basically trying to bend us over and giving us the high hard one every day, and I think we need to say that we don't want to take it anymore, and we're going to do everything in our power to be human to one another. That's all we got left. We got our cognitive liberty and we've got humanity, and if we decide that we're going to let them take what we have in our brains and screw with that, and if we're going to decide they're going to take away our humanity, we're going to become monsters, because we're going to become people who just don't care. Any other questions? No? Thank you so much. Oh, over there. Over there, okay.
One more.
Okay. We got people over there too, Ron.
We only have so much time.
Oh, I know, but I feel like I have to.
There's a lot of folks in the alternative community, or folks who are awake as to issues that you don't discuss all the time. I've been hearing for about a year now that there's going to be a shift from the current currency to a gold standard, and depending on they all seem isolated in little bubbles, like things are getting better, I just don't see the whole big picture. And some of these folks are like genuinely cared for a lot, like SETI Ranch and shows like Truth, Honor, Integrity, Thomas Williams, Sirius Report. But I'm wondering, is there any actual, what's your take on that? Is there going to be a ship?
We're going to, no,
currency,
yes,
or
there's
is
going to
it-
be a ship, but it's not going to be a gold standard. It's going to be an energy standard.
Awesome.
You got to kind of worry when Bitcoin is worth more than gold. And what do they bet Bitcoin against? Energy, bits of energy on a computer, because they are amazing and they are worth more than gold anymore. Terabytes, megabytes, they're worth a lot of money now. And you know, I could see a time where they have the water standard, where you would have currency based on whether or not you can get good water. I mean, that's the thing. Gold anymore, it's the first time in our history that gold is losing its value. Now, I told people to get gold a long time ago because I figured it would be great to get gold and to have it and to save it. And I didn't talk about it. I told people, cash your gold in now because something's going to change. I had 2 Bitcoin at one time, $600 each, okay? They got up to $600, I cashed them in, I had $1,200 from Bitcoin. Bitcoin took a dip to 200, I thought, I did a great job. Now I'm kicking myself in the ass. But the good news is, internet, so somewhere out there I have $200 in Bitcoin waiting for me, because little pieces of Bitcoin make $200, just little half bits have now gone up in value. So I'm finding a way to try and get that out, but I figured maybe I'll just keep it there and maybe one day I'll wake up and it'll be worth like millions of dollars. It's like the pizza guy. You heard about this pizza guy, right? He delivered pizza to a house and the guy says, all I got is Bitcoin. So he threw him Bitcoin, and back then Bitcoin was like 25 cents, I guess. And he threw him a bunch of Bitcoins for 25 cents and goes, hang on to these, you're gonna be a millionaire. Now they're worth about $7 million. So you're the pizza guy that got $7 million for your pizza delivery. Retrocausality. The sandwich, the pizza you ate today gave you the money you get tomorrow. It is Philip K. Dick. I think Philip K. Dick was more known in his mind about the future than most of us. Yes.
I just wanted to talk about the narcotic thing once again. You kind of posed a question in regards to replacement therapy and what you're going to replace addiction with.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a pretty strange answer, but the answer is good drugs, psychedelic.
Okay.
I've cured people who are suicidal, people who had really strong addiction with DMT and MDA, specifically depression with psilocybin. I've seen it work time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what your personal take on this is, and if you had any of these, pseudo-spiritual experiences.
No. I talked with Timothy Leary. I met Timothy Leary a long time ago, and we had a talk about LSD. And I asked him about it, and he says, well, John Lennon once said that if you take LSD, you know who you are. And I said, I really don't want to know who I am. And if you notice, the other day on Facebook, I posted something. You know who Bob Ross is?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Little Trees.
Yeah, Happy Little Trees. There was a person who somehow made this artwork that simulates an LSD trip.
I saw that.
And I watched it, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't be able to do this for more than 10 minutes. I would go crazy.
Buy the ticket, take the ride.
But I do know that it does help people who've had depression and heroin addiction. So maybe, and you know that LSD was not illegal for the longest time. This whole idea of criminalizing drugs is very young. It's very recent, like what, the 1920s, at the turn of the century, maybe 1920. So, this experiment called the drug war has failed.
Yeah, and they're just conceding now. I think
Yeah.
here in Oregon, it's just as of a couple weeks ago,
Yes.
you can have up to 40 hits of
Right.
LSD on you now.
And I can tell you right now, we better do this right because we're going to be looked at. But I think people, if you want to do this, research Portugal and research some of the UK and some of their laws about this stuff, and you'll find that they eliminated a lot of drug problems by doing the same thing that Oregon's planning on doing with the cocaine and the heroin. So that's something to think about. Look at Portugal and how they're doing. They're doing very well. Doing very well. Any other questions?
Time is up here.
Time is up. We've done a lot of time here. Thank you so much. Thank you. And by the way, if you guys want a shirt or a book signed or anything, we've got them back there available.
SETI Ranch
ECETI Ranch. We're going to be at ECETI Ranch when?
August 24th to the 27th.
24th through the 27th, we'll be at ECETI Ranch. We're going up there. Get your cabin reservations and your camping sites now, because they do go fast and they pack the place out. So we're going to be there, and be listening to, we're going to be organizing something for the eclipse coming up as well on the 21st of August. So we're probably going to make a nice little trip out to Salem or Lincoln City or someplace where we can see the eclipse, and hopefully the clouds will be parted and we'll be able to see this once-in-a-lifetime event. Actually, it's going to happen again, but it's happening on the other side of the country. So it'll be nice to see it here on this side of the country first. So, yeah, well, you know what I wanted to do, and they didn't want to do it. I wanted to do a caravan to Magic Valley, Idaho, where we see it happen, and if we beat the penumbral by 10 minutes, it would remain penumbral for the whole trip. So I'm figuring that, once it becomes penumbral, we get in our cars and we hightail it to Idaho, and we just follow the eclipse, and it's penumbral all the way through, so it's like darkness. We're just doing darkness all the way through the trip, darkness. Anyway, that was my idea. They didn't like the idea. We can't insure that, they said. I can't do that. So by the way, if you want to do that, what? I have no idea.
Just check our Facebook page periodically. And
Yeah, check the Facebook page, because at first they were going to have me go to a car dealership and sell eclipses the whole day. I'm not kidding. And you know what? I kind of like the idea because it sounds so 80s. Hey, come on down. We'll finance your hot dog and we'll give you the car for free. It's kind of like something back in the old rock days, We're down here. Come on down and say hi. Although that's some ugly stuff back then, but it sounded kind of fun. Well, I'm not going to do that, though. I'll probably just be out standing in my field watching the sun eclipse, and that'll be it. That'll be all of it. So, anyway. Thank you all for coming out to the Ground Zero Lounge. Stick around. I'll have karaoke, and as I said, books and stuff. I'll sign them. They're posters and cool things. And once again, ECETI, that's our next event, so come on out to that. We'll be having a good time there. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.